am început cu manageri, am finalizat cu manageri, ca să înțelegeți că HR-ul nu este doar un business al Departamentului de Resurse Umane, ci HR-ul este și un business al managerilor. Și o să discutăm mai multe, dacă vreți, la următorul nostru training, pe care o să-l organizăm într-o dată anunțată ulterior. Până atunci, după cum știți, aveam o prezentare planificată să fie digitală. Iată că ne-a ieșit. Așa că, doamnelor și domnilor, îl invit pe Peter Hawkins să ne povestească despre coaching. Hi, Peter!
Salut, Romania! It is a pleasure to be with you today. And I am just trying to open the right slides, because the slides have now gone to the wrong slides. But I will be with you very shortly. Let me just try and get you so that the right slides are on the screen. I am currently in Belgrade, just down the road from you, and sorry not to be with you in person. But very soon I will have the slides that the whole system crashed on me just a few moments ago. And now I'm having to, I'm finding it very difficult to find the right, if I put Romania in, it would tell me, there we go. We will now have the right slides. Can you see them on the screen?
Yes, yeah, that is excellent.
Fantastic. So today, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how the needs for leadership in the future are going to be different. And this requires different forms of leadership development and different types of coaching that we have had in the last 30 years. So welcome to this short talk. And I'm inviting you to join me in a revolution in human resources, a revolution in leadership development, and a revolution in coaching. For we've realized that the future, from the research we have done, that many of the people in your organizations will no longer be on your payroll in 10 years' time. That over 90% of what's currently done as leadership development is no longer fit for purpose. And that it's time for the human resources functions, the leadership and development functions to join together with the strategy function to create future fit organizations with future fit leadership and future fit employees. So for many years, I have been involved with working with organizational change, and have realized that the law of organizational survival is that organizations need to learn faster than their environment is changing. In today's world, the environment is changing faster and in more complex ways. And this means that we constantly have to change our strategy. But some of you may have heard the phrase, culture will always eat your strategy for breakfast. So we need to discover how to change the culture to deliver the strategy to meet the changing environment. But we have another phrase which says, leadership get the culture they collectively behave. Not individually behave, but collectively behave. So we have to discover how to change the leadership culture, to change the organizational culture, to deliver the strategy to meet the changing environmental challenges. And we can think of strategy and reduce it to one question. What is it that you can uniquely do that the world of tomorrow needs? So you can ask this question at an individual level, at a team level, an organizational level. Not what do your customers want or your investors, but what it is that the world of tomorrow needs and that you can do uniquely. And for many years, I've been using that question. And then someone said to me, so Peter, now you're in your 60s, what's your answer to that question? And I went on retreat for 3 days to answer my own question. And at the end of the 3 days, I discovered that the people who were keeping me working were these 5 little people. These are my grandchildren. This is my dementia memory test. But this is Iris, Florence, Nancy, Charlie, and Freddie. And why are they keeping me working way beyond retirement age? Because the one thing I can promise you about the future is that when these 5 little people grow up, inshallah, they get through school and God willing, they go out into the world of work and become leaders, they will face far bigger challenges than anything my most privileged generation has had to face. Bigger challenges, more complex challenges. And if I live long enough, they come to me age 30 and they say, what were you coaches? What were you leaders? You HR professionals? What were you doing when you were creating this volatile, unpredictable, and complex world? What were you doing to help prepare us for a world of greater challenge, a world of greater demand, higher quality expectations, and diminishing resources? What were you doing to prepare us for that world that you were leaving us? And you see, I realize that most of us are not doing enough to prepare the following generations for the world that we are leaving them. And we need to discover, how will leadership need to be different? What development is needed for tomorrow's leadership? Where is the current practice and what more needs to be done? So for 2 years, I led a research project, and we went and interviewed companies all around the world. These are just some of them. Companies in Asia, Africa, America, Europe. And we talked to CEOs, we talked to HR professionals, and we particularly interviewed young millennial leaders about how leadership needed to be different and what leadership development was needed. We also looked at the best surveys that were going on around the world. And then we put all together the interviews of the 3 different voices from over 40 organizations. We put together the data from all the surveys. We had focus groups of young millennials, focus groups of CEOs, HR directors, and we looked at over 100 of the best publications on the future of leadership. And we looked at, well, what does that tell us if we put it all together about how leadership needs to be different? And if you're interested, at the end, you can send me an email and I will send you a copy of the research. But I would just give you some highlights. These were the top 7 challenges that people all around the world agreed that they were having to step up to and face. I'll just talk about a couple of them briefly. Unceasing transformation. Everyone said, we have faced unprecedented change in the last 10 years, but it will get even faster in the next 10 years. We still don't know how to adapt fast enough. We have to say goodbye to the world of normal change and look at how do we step up to a world of quantum change. Incremental innovation is no longer good enough. And this is partly driven by what some people describe as the fourth industrial revolution. The first industrial revolution was driven by steam, the second by electricity, the third by computers. The fourth industrial revolution is where we see innovation in computers, in artificial intelligence, in biotechnology, in roboticization, all coming together to create new worlds beyond our imagination. And this means that it is no longer good enough to have the best product and the best process. The new competition comes from unexpected places. And I discovered a new word talking to CEOs. They talked about the fear of being Uberized. This is somebody who will come along and change the whole value chain of your organization. Won't just make a better product, but will change how your industry operates, as Uber did for taxis, as Netflix did for films, as Airbnb did for hotels. Many insurance CEOs said to me, when Amazon enter the insurance business, it will change overnight. And a global CEO said to me, and I could feel his fear down the telephone. He said, I wake up every morning terrified that we are one of the best in the world in what we do today, but I'm terrified that what we are good at will be totally irrelevant in 5 years' time. How do I motivate the people who are making our money today and motivate another part of my company that is set up to disrupt from inside our organization? And how do I get both of those working together to radically change so we are prepared, but not only to win today's game, but we're prepared to disrupt ourselves to learn how to win tomorrow's game? That's what we're up against. Several CEOs said to us, in fact, all of them agreed that in the next 10 years, we will employ less people because of artificial intelligence, robots, outsourcing, digitalization. But they all said, we will have to partner with more stakeholders, with competitors, with partner businesses, with the communities, with our customers. So tomorrow's leadership will not be about leading my team, my organization, my function. It'll be far more about how do I partner and lead horizontally with other stakeholders inside the company and outside the company. Fifthly, how do we become global? Even if we're a local business, our investment might come from the other side of the world. Our competitors are going to be global. Our suppliers may be global. Even if we are just based in Romania, we still need to operate as a global business in terms of thinking of our stakeholders. The next, and probably the most important of all, is climate change. And it was very interesting. Every millennial we interviewed put climate change as one of their top 3 global challenges for their organization. But most CEOs did not mention it until they were prompted. And then they'll say, oh, yes, of course, climate change will change everything. But it's still not at the top of the agenda where it belongs. And finally, the biggest challenge for everybody in HR and leadership development is how do we get every individual, every team, every organization learning faster and more capable to do more at higher quality with less resource. So those are the challenges. And we don't have time to go through this, but in the research, you'll see that we put together what were leaders of today saying to the leaders of tomorrow, and what were tomorrow's leaders, the young millennials, wanting different from today's leadership to help them accelerate their ability to be future fit leaders. So this means that we need a different sort of leadership. The days of the heroic leader are gone. It's no good just to have leaders who have developed their EQ as well as their IQ, because now we need for leaders to develop their WeQ, their collaborative intelligence, their ability to create teams that are greater than the sum of their parts, to be able to orchestrate collaboration across the whole organization, to become a team of teams, to collaborate across the ecosystem of stakeholders, to build partnerships and networks, and to live in a world, if you look at number 8, where there is no place to hide. One CEO said to me, 5 years ago, if I had an ethical dilemma, I consulted my head of legal counsel. But legal guidance is 5 years behind the technology revolution. So now I have to say to my top team, if we do what we're planning, what will that look like on social media? What will that look like when it gets onto Facebook or Instagram or in the press? Because we now live in a transparent world. One CEO said to me, leadership today is like flying an aircraft at 40,000 feet and having to rebuild the plane while you're flying it. Like having to work with the team on the cockpit of the plane, manage the team who are looking after the passengers, talk to ground control, and watch the changing weather coming over the horizon. This is the nature of today's leadership. And if the only place of integration is the CEO, you will not survive as an organization. The days of the heroic leader are gone. We need collective leadership, collaborative leadership, and systemic leadership. So if we look at, so what is leadership development doing? Most of the research tells us that we are still developing 20th century leaders, not 21st century leadership development. These are just some of the quotes that came from CEOs and HR directors. We're still looking at individual leadership competencies. We're still looking at individual leader KPIs when we need team KPIs. We need collective capacities, not individual competencies. So we went to look at where could we find the new forms of leadership. And in the research, we talk about 7 areas where we think tomorrow's leadership development is already happening. And I'll just talk about a couple of those in the short time I'm with you today. First of all, I've been writing a lot about, and I'm currently in Belgrade running a training which we run in 50 countries of the world on how do you develop effective leadership teams, where every member of that team is not just managing their bit of it, the sales, the HR, the business, but they are all collective leaders of the integration and of the whole, where the team can all represent the collective, not just their function, where they can bring together and process systemic conflict, where they can both run the business and transform it, where they can cope with being 100% member of the top team and 100% member of their own team, These are big challenges that I write about in the book. How do we help team leaders move from being a team manager to a team leader, to being able to be the team orchestrator who can work with the connections, not just with the parts, to being somebody today it's no good just being a team leader, because you have to be coaching your team to be able to do more at higher quality with less resource, to be ready to be a future fit team for tomorrow's world. One CEO said to me, Peter, I've got lots of coaches who coach my leaders. I've got lots of consultants who consult to different parts of my organization. But that is not where the challenges lie. All my challenges, all of them lie in the connections. And I need people who can help me sort out the connections and change the connections between people. So team leaders of tomorrow will have to be orchestrators and coaches, not just visionary team leaders or team managers. So we've developed this model for team leadership, which talks about how teams need to be, first of all, clear about what's their collective purpose, what it is they need to achieve together they cannot achieve apart, what is their commission and their purpose. Then they have to clarify that. So what do we need to focus on? What do we need to collectively have as our team KPIs and our collective team goals and objectives? Once we're clear about the why and the what, we come down to the how. How do we need to operate differently to succeed in that world of tomorrow? And then we come across to the who. How do we need to be clear about all our stakeholders, and how do we collectively engage them as a leadership team? Not only our employees, not only our customers, but our partner organizations, not only our investors, but also the communities where we operate. Finally, we can do all those 4 disciplines, but if we're not doing the 5th discipline of constantly growing our team's capacity to do more at higher quality with less resource, we are not becoming future fit for tomorrow's game. And then just to say that more and more, the other things I've been doing with companies, a company came to me recently and said, Peter, will you coach our top team? Because we've got this new chairman and he's making new demands. And I looked at their business. They were 10 years behind where they should be on the transformation curve. And I said, listen, I will only coach the top team if you also allow me to work with the board and the relationship between the executive team and the board. Because it's no good having a great top team if we're not connecting that to the supervisory board. And I said, by the way, also, I will need to coach a shadow leadership team of young millennials drawn from across the diversity of your business, who will work on the same strategy issues as your leadership team, but with greater diversity and new thinking. And then I won't just get them to report back to the leadership team. I'll bring the 2 teams together, and I'll make the leadership team responsible for shifting the thinking of the shadow leadership team, the young millennial future leaders. And I'll make the future leaders responsible for shifting the mindsets of today's leaders. Because today's leaders have become successful because they are good at yesterday's game, not good at creating tomorrow's game. And by the way, if they've been successful leaders, Bill Gates, the founder of Microsoft, said, success is a lousy teacher. Success gets us to focus on the past, to focus on what's worked yesterday, not to wake up to what the future requires. So we then get the 2 teams to come together and to create thinking that neither team could do by themselves. And I'll give you one other quick takeaway. one of the simplest things I've done with leadership teams, management teams, boards, is most of them are focusing on today's problems and are focusing internally. And tomorrow's leadership teams need to be thinking future back and outside in. So I bring in 3 empty chairs. And on one of them it says our investors. On one of them it says our customers. On one it says our staff and employees. And on one it says our collective grandchildren. And in the middle of our strategy discussions, in the middle of our arguments, I say, stop. I want people to get out of their chairs and sit in the stakeholder chairs and comment from that perspective on the conversation you've just heard. I bring the stakeholder external ecosystem into the meeting room. And over again, I've discovered that wakes the team up to a bigger systemic perspective. By stepping into the shoes of the stakeholder, they challenge each other in better and more powerful ways. So I would invite each of you to think how you might do that in your meetings, how you might move from being a team manager to a team orchestrator, to a team leader, to a team orchestrator, to a team coach, and get your team to be thinking future back and outside in, focusing on the 3 time horizons: how we manage the business of today, how we innovate for tomorrow, and how do we do future foresight of what's coming over the horizon. And finally, let me say, within 5 years, I am predicting that we will not have separate strategy departments, HR departments, leadership development, organizational development and talent. These will all be one function, because all of those parts of your organization have one job to do. That is, how do we make today's organization future fit? So we need a joined up future fit function. And we need leadership development, not looking at case studies about the past, but leadership development focused on dealing with the challenges of tomorrow that are arriving today. We need to create between us future fit organizations that are ready for the many challenges that are coming over the horizon. So I hopefully that's opened some new thinking for you. And while I'm still here, are there any questions? Do we have some time for some questions from the people there with you in Romania?
Questions? Întrebări pentru Peter Hawkins? Vrea cineva?
Yeah,
I
I can hear you.
Peter, I think the people is very scared because the complexity of the subject, and I'm sure that if you'll be here in Romania face to face, will be more questions.
So, all right, what I'm going to ask you to do one thing for me then.
Go ahead.
Has everyone got a piece of paper and a pen in front of them?
Yes.
Please, would each of you think about the last month of your work? And in that month, please write down 3 figures for me. What percentage of your time did you spend working on business as usual? Today's challenges, today's emails, today's meetings, today's problems. Managing to keep the car on the road, the bus on the road. The second figure is, what time did you spend innovating for tomorrow? Improving how you do the work, how you do your meetings, innovating new processes, new products, new ways of operating, and write down a percentage for that time. And the third percentage is how much time did you spend looking at what's coming over the future horizon that we need to be prepared for. So those three figures should add up to roughly 100%. How much time on today, dealing with all the urgent stuff, the business as usual, how much time on tomorrow, and how much time looking at the future horizon and future foresight. And once you've written those three questions, those three numbers down, please put underneath them three new numbers. What do you think those percentages should be in a year's time for you to be a future fit coach, manager, HR professional, leader of tomorrow? So you have three figures for what you're doing today. How much time on Horizon 1, business as usual. Horizon 2, innovating. Horizon 3, future foresight. And now you put three new figures. What do you think those percentages need to be? Yep. And I am going to invite you to turn to the person next to you and share your figures. And then they are going to ask you a very simple question. How are you going to get from today's figures to tomorrow's figures? How are you going to change your work radically so that you are a future fit coach or HR professional or leadership development person or manager or leader? How are you going to make that change from today's percentages to tomorrow's percentages? So I will say thank you very much for allowing me to join you virtually and ask you to turn to each other, look each other in the eye and ask, what are you going to do that's going to make the difference? And do remember when you think about that not only my grandchildren, but your grandchildren are depending on the difference you will make and the difference that I will make. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you very much again, and I hope to see you very soon in Romania for 2 days or 3 days training, because I'm very sure that many coaches want to touch you and to understand how you are so good in what you're doing.
Well, thank you. I very hope that it will not be long before I manage to come to Romania and see your beautiful country.
Thank you.
So I just say la revedere and mercy.
Mulțumim mult. Thank you very much again, Peter.